Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a dog lamp. Well, what on earth is a dog lamp? Well, a dog lamp is a lamp that's shaped like a dog. This is a fun, kind of quirky project. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but we're going to give it a whirl. And it starts off with a couple little components kind of thing. So let's head over to the bench and I'll show you what I've got in mind for this one. Well, the first thing that we need is our dog shape. And I've gone online, I've just Googled dog line drawings, and I found this one and I kind of liked it. So I printed it up. So we need something like this. It can be any kind of dog you like, it doesn't matter. And the other aspect that we need is a lampshade. Preferably a tapered style. That's what makes this lamp look the way that it should. But I don't even know the size of this, and it really doesn't matter. So you need a small lampshade of some kind. So we need to blow this up in order to make it the size that we want. So for that, I'm going to use a projector. Well, this is my projector. I have had it for as long as I can remember. It does a great job at projecting things, and all you need to do is place your smaller printout underneath the projector and it will project it here. I don't know how well the camera is showing it, but it will project it here on the piece of board that I have placed clamped to my bench. So what you want to do is you want to make it big enough so that the shade is roughly at the smallest diameter, about the same size as what the neck is of your dog. So you want them to be equal or close. Now, we're going to need to make 3 patterns here. One will be of the entire dog, head, tail, everything. The next pattern will be just of the legs. And the last pattern will be of the body without the legs and without the tail. And we're just going to do that by placing a little bit of newsprint over top of the board and tracing it. Well, we have our 3 patterns and they're pretty rough renditions. So at this point, you can refine it if you want. You can neaten up these curves. It's not that imperative because we're going to have more shaping to do later. Now you may notice that on this one with the tail, I have this line right here drawn across the neck. And that is because we don't need the head, because that is where our light is going to be, and that is where our shade is going to mount. You see where this is going, hopefully. So what we need to do is this piece here with our tail. We're going to refine our tail, straighten up this bottom line so that it's nice and flat. And we are going to cut out of 3/4 inch pine 1 piece of this pattern. The body, no head, forget the head. The body, this straight line here, and the tail. 1 piece out of 3/4 inch thick pine. And there is our middle section cut out. Now, I'm just going to peel off my pattern here. And all I've done here, guys, is like I've always done. I coat the wood with masking tape and then use some spray adhesive to attach our newsprint pattern onto our wood. That way you don't get any sticky residue here on your wood when you remove the pattern. Anyway, here we go. We have this piece here now. But before we carry on, what I want to do is I want to get my trim router with an upcut spiral bit in it, and I want to route a small channel from the middle of the neck at the top. We'll just place a mark here, right about here, right in the middle. We want to route a shallow channel. It can be 1/4 inch deep. It doesn't have to be very deep, but we're going to route it from the top here all the way down to the back end, and we want to exit somewhere out here at the base of the tail. And what that's going to be for is that is going to be the channel that will house our wire to power our lamp once we get to that point of the build. So once you get that routed, we can carry on with the next two pieces that we need. Well, at this point, you have a couple of options. We need two of these pieces. That's the pieces without the tail and without the legs. Now you can use this pattern here to refine this one and get it set, and again, masking tape onto your stock, or you can use this one here to trace it and get an exact shape of what you need. Just remembering that you need to curve this down on both pieces in order to eliminate the tail. So why bother tracing the pattern? That's just to give you options. So if you want to use the pattern that you traced, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can use this center cutout that you did as your tracing pattern, and that's what I'm going to do. So we need to trace this center piece onto some more 3/4 inch thick pine, and we're going to need two of them without the tail. Well, I don't think I discussed it, but guys, the method of cutting here, you can use whatever method you want: bandsaw, scroll saw, coping saw. For me, the method, or the preferred method, is the scroll saw, as I'm sure most of you already figured out. But it doesn't matter how good you are at the tool that you're using. I've been scrolling for 30 years, and I can tell you, you're not going to get these identical. You're not going to get them perfect. You will get them pretty darn close, as I have here, but they're not going to be perfect. So what we need to do now is we need to glue these three together with the tail piece in the middle, and it will get sandwiched between our two body pieces. Do your best to align it as best you can to get them all glued together. And as well, on this piece here, try not to get glue too close to your routed channel, because you don't want the glue to bleed over into the channel and seal it up. We need to keep that open. So we're going to get these glued up, clamped up, and we're going to let these sit overnight, making sure to, as best we can, align our flat surfaces. Okay, so while we're waiting for that glue up of the body to be done, we can cut our legs. And we're going to need two of the rear legs and two of the front legs. Guys, once again, you're going to want to take a ruler and flatten out the bottom markings of your pattern, just to give it a nice, my ruler slipped there, just to give it a nice flush flat surface to sit on once everything is assembled. So we're going to, again, attach these patterns to 3/4 inch thick pine again. We're going to cut one and then use that one to trace your other ones. Try to refine your edges here as best you can. In the grand scheme of it, as I said, there's a lot more to do to this once the glue up is done. So we're going to refine this as best we can, cut them out, for me at the scroll saw, use the band saw or whatever other method you wish to do it with, and cut two of each, and I'll see you when you get that done and your glue up is finished. All right, and with those cut, there is absolutely nothing we can do until the glue is dried. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Well, here we are. It's the next day and our dog body is dried up. But the very first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this over to the belt sander, and I'm going to flatten our bottom and as well our neck here where we join the pieces together. There's a few uneven edges and a little bit of squeeze out. So we're going to flatten those as best we can over at the belt sander. Okay, so the next step that we want to do is I want to line up his feet on this lamp, just like this. And I want to put them where I think they should go. And in my case, I think that this back edge should line up with his butt down here, just like that. And once you get his legs in place where you want them, I want to clamp them in place. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing with his front legs. Just like that. Okay. So you could potentially sand this down here to even up these edges over at the oscillating drum sander. You could potentially leave this like this if that's the way you want it. This is just fine. But I want to give it a little more shape. So what I'm going to do is around each one of these legs, I'm going to trace where they're sitting. And once I get it traced where they go, I'm going to unclamp them and remove them. And then we're going to do a little bit of carving with the power carver. Well, I'm not going to get too involved here on the video with the power carving, but I do want to point out a few things. I'm going to be using an aggressive burr. It's called a typhoon burr, and it takes a lot of material off very quickly. So what you want to realize for something like this is how the grain is running. So the grain is running this way, kind of like that. I don't know if you can see that. And as I draw the grain, you can see that there are small sections here that if you are power carving along this way and you happen to hook in the grain with your power carver right here on this curve, this entire piece could potentially break out. So you want to pay attention to that and kind of start carving in the center of that arc. So you're carving down against the bottom corner of those little sections. You're not trying to lift them with the power carver. And then once you get to the arc, you want to carve going the opposite direction. So you want to carve along here, again, so that your burr is not getting up underneath that grain and trying to pop those pieces out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve this up. Again, I'm not getting into the power carving of this during this video. That's not what this video is about. But I do want to give it a little bit of shape. I'm not going to go too crazy on it, but I do want to give it some shape. So why the markings of where the legs go? It's because I still want to leave the remainder of the flat surface for me to glue the legs on. I know not to carve inside these lines. That's why they're there. Now, if you wanted to just sand this off flush and have it as a more square dog, that's fine. You can do that too. There's no rule that says you can't do that. But for me, I don't want that. I want the dog a little more shapely. So I'm going to carve it. I'm going to see you when I get it carved, or mostly carved anyway. Okay, and once you get your carving mostly done, you can take a steel brush and you can just brush out your carvings. And it doesn't have to be perfect here. You want the lines in there because it's kind of looking like hair. So we're just going to carefully brush this all out to take away a lot of the burrs that's in this fur. And then any edges that are still producing burrs, we can give them a light sanding. If you soften some of the details, that's okay. You can carve them back in after. Well, at this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to use a torch and we're going to burn the rest of the burrs off. I've already started it. And you can see there that that's going to darken a lot of the detail that you've carved in. I haven't decided. My initial plan was to paint this black, but we're going to see what it looks like after I torch it. And then we can start on the legs and carve those and get those going as well. Well, for my liking, it's a little too risky to try to carve the legs while they're separated from the body. So I am actually going to glue these onto the body, and then we'll do the carving of those after the glue dries. Well, I'm not sure how it happened, but the project kind of morphed, and I wanted a simple dog, and then I was having fun with the power carver and with the blowtorch, and well, I ended up with this. And I'm okay with that. I think it looks great, but not quite what I had in mind. I wanted something a little more simple. Either way, I had fun with it. It looks great. I'm going to carry on. So now it's time for us to add the lights. And for that, we're going to need some LEDs. Well, every time I make a project using LED strips, I always save the strips. I have a box of them, whether it be RGB or white, it doesn't matter. And guys,
Never throw out power supplies. I don't even know what this is for, but it's from something that we had that we no longer have. But this is the same output as what these LEDs require. And because they're the same output, and as long as you have the polarity correct, you can use these LED strips and fire them up. And that's what we're going to do here for this dog lamp. We're going to use this power supply and some old LED strips to light this lamp up. So the first thing I want to do is I want to separate this in shorter sections with 3 LEDs on each section. I'm going to need 4 of them. So this strip here will be perfect. Well, I have taken my 4 LED strips and using their adhesive backing, I've attached them here to the neck of my dog, making sure that I don't block off our entrance hole for our power cable. And as well, I left the middle. I drew a center line here and left the middle intact. So at this point now, I need to solder these strips together. I'm not going to do a video of it. I've shown you guys on the show here before how to solder LED strips. I'll post the link to that in the video's description. I'm going to get the power supply hooked up, and then I'll show you where we're at that point in time. Well, you may notice here that I have rerouted the cables or the wire here into the center of this whole assembly here of the head. There's a reason for that. And that reason is that I have cut the wire. This shade normally sits over top of a light bulb, but I have cut this wire to be able to fit right down over top and fit in between, right in between our wires there. So I'm going to drill some pilot holes and I'm going to secure this shade with a number 6 screw and a couple of washers. And then I'll show you what I have at this point in time. As well, when you bring your power wire up through your bottom section here, you're going to want to tie a knot at the top on the inside of the shade so that that cord cannot be pulled back out and wreck your LEDs or cause a dead short, which would be another problem. So let's get this shade mounted and I'll show you what I've got. All right, so I'll just show you here. This is how the shade is mounted. I wasn't sure if it was clear in my description, but you can see here how the screws and the washers hold the frame down in place. So this here is what the lamp itself looks like. And we'll just plug it in. Check that out. I think that's pretty cute. Our little dog lamp with the cone of shame on his head. And there you have it. A dog-shaped lamp. Guys, this is just a fun, quirky project. It's not really meant as a project to light up your living area or, say, your recreational room. It is meant as an accent lamp. It's fun. If you want to add more LEDs to make it brighter, of course you can do that. You could even on the inside take a larger dowel and circle the LEDs around it, kind of to make like an illuminated tube almost. So you can change it however you want. Now this project for me, it morphed. It really did. My initial thought and my initial idea was to have a dog kind of 3-dimensional with the blocky legs sticking out from the body with the tail. And it wasn't meant to really have a lot of detail. A little bit of shape, yes, but detail, not really. I wasn't planning on doing any carving. I was planning on rounding over edges of legs, rounding the chest area, rounding maybe the hips to get them to blend in a little better with the body. I never once had it in my mind to carve this thing, but then I haven't used my power carver in a while, and the more I had the carver in my hand and the more I started to work with it, the more fun I was having, and it just kept going and going and going until you see what we've got here now. And that's okay. I mean, it morphed out of the way of what I ever wanted it to be in the first place, but I really like the results. So it's fine. An experiment gone right in this case. Guys, you can switch this up as much as you want. If you want to make it with colored LEDs, make it with colored LEDs. If you don't want to use the blowtorch thing and you want to paint it black, which again was my original idea, then paint it black. If you want to add a finish like varnish to it, you can. And I probably will with this one just to seal in those burnt edges so you don't get the charcoal kind of thing on your hands. I will probably also add a little bit of UV resin into that tail hole just to keep that cord secured there and keep it from being pulled out or flopping around. All in all though, guys, this project took about 3 days with allowing the glue to dry and the carving and that sort of thing. But it was 3 days well spent. Guys, although this lamp has kind of a comedy aspect to it with that cone of shame around the head, it's still a fun project. And honestly, I think it looks kind of cool. I think it's a fun project that looks great. And honestly, I think you should give this one a whirl. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you haven't already, or if you found any part of this show enjoyable, why not like and subscribe to the channel? We have an amazing audience base here, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of it. Guys, once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the project. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've enjoyed some of the methods I've shown you here today and that you're going to apply them to your own projects in your shop. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.